Hey, everybody, we're going to continue our series on patriarchy. Last time we talked about patriarchy and the definition kind of what patriarchy is, how it's antithetical to chivalry. Now we're going to go to where do we see patriarchy in the Bible? Some places there, maybe not all places, but just in general, where are we seeing it from Genesis to even in the book of Judges, how the judges were male. Now, some people say no, Deborah was a judge, but in the two listings of the judges in the Bible, in Samuel and in Hebrews, Deborah's not listed. It's Barak that's listed. So there's there's even some controversy there, like the great Christian ethnists who talk about, oh, Deborah, rah rah, six boom bah. It's like, well, it could be actually that Barak abdicated his role, and that's why Deborah's talked about so much in the book. Regardless of that, though, we'll talk about that, how the Old Testament, the kings were always men. God put men there. And in the pagan cultures surrounding them, sometimes they would have queens, but God's design was always for kings, patriarchs to be ruling. And then we'll go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, talking about how man is the glory of God and woman is the glory of man. Ooh. Interesting stuff. It's patriarchy. You're going to love it. Let's get to it.
So back to patriarchy, right?
Back to patriarchy.
So we have in Genesis, God always talks to heads of households. So examples are Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and so on. Moses. Israel is organized by patriarchal lines, right? So male elders or princes or heads of households, and you always have male leadership throughout the Old Testament. Now, people will always bring up Deborah in this discussion.
Oh man, yeah, and there's Deborah.
Yeah, so the Deborah is really a misunderstanding because Deborah never led anyone anywhere. Deborah was a consulting prophetess. It says she was judging, quote unquote, judging Israel, but if you read in the context that she's not actually a leader, political or military. An argument,
because Barak is the leader, right?
Yeah, so an argument could be made from the list of judges we get in 1 Samuel 12 and Hebrews 11 that Barak was the chosen judge at this time, and for some reason he is not very forthcoming.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So in Hebrews, it lists Barak and not Deborah.
Not Deborah, yeah, Deborah's not even mentioned in that list.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
So the Deborah example is really a deadish. It's really a dead argument, right?
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard that before. Yeah.
So kings, right? So you get male judges in Exodus 18. Well, the first qualification is there must be men. And then for the kings, right, you said in Deuteronomy 17, I think it is, where he says, you shall set him king over you from the Lord your God shall choose. So specifically king. The pagans sometimes had reigning queens, but Israel never did with God's approval. You know, one of the bugs of Christendom, right, is that they allowed reigning queens, right, which are not biblical.
You mean in Europe?
Yeah. It wasn't too common, but once in a while you'll get a reigning queen.
Yeah, I know John Knox didn't like the Queen's ruling there.
Yeah.
In England and Scotland.
Yeah, that's not it's not biblical. But it was a pagan practice, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that you got male, so that there you got male headship in the state, right? Or in society. So I'm not really sticking to my outline very much. I'm just going off the cuff here. So the patriarchy is really down at the fundamentals. So it's not again, it's not simply a definition or a division of labor or a
Mm,
difference in roles. That's the part, that's the argument of the complementarians, right?
mm.
That there's a difference in roles, but God almost arbitrarily assigned leadership roles to men rather than women. It's almost like you flip the coin, right? Okay, someone's gonna lead. Who's gonna lead? It's gonna be the man, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not really what the Bible says. So there's something in their nature that is the man is more suited to the leadership role, whereas the woman is more suited to the delegate or seconding the follower or the follower role or second in command role. Yeah, so 1 Corinthians 11:7 to 9 is important because here it says the man is the glory of God. So the man is not to cover his head because he is the image and the glory of God.
Yeah.
So so both man and woman are the image in the image of God, but man, apart from being the image of God, is also the glory of God,
Mm.
as opposed to the woman who is not the glory of God, but the glory of man.
And you
Well,
think that
so
relates to
the
patriarchy?
Yeah, so the idea of glory here, as I understand it, has to do with illumination or reflection, right?
Okay.
So the man reflects in his masculine nature. He reflects directly the character and authority of God. The woman, pulled from man's side, reflects not God but man.
Mm.
Reflects his nature and authority, right?
Oh. Okay.
So that's how there you have this hierarchy in their very natures and roles, right?
Okay.
And or created natures, if you will. Now here I have a bone to pick with even some patriarchal guys who will say something like, oh no, that this is not a demeaning of the woman because see the woman is the glory of the glory of God, so she's more glorious than the
Oh.
man. You know? No, that's not the point. It's completely twisted. Uh,
Okay.
if 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 the woman's more glorious than the man, then the man's more glorious than God because uh, so the issue is reflection, right? So there's a subordination because of who you're reflecting. Man reflects God, right, who is over him, who
Yeah.
he represents,
Yeah.
and woman reflects the man, specifically in the home, because she represents him and is subordinate to him. So that's why you got chapter 3, right, where Paul says the head of every man is Christ. So I often point out, it says every man, it doesn't say every Christian man, it doesn't say every husband. It says
Mm.
Christ is the head of every man,
Yeah.
right? And the head of the woman is the man. So
Yeah.
if Christ is the head of every man and man is the head of woman, then the headship of man over woman is just as broad as Christ's headship over man, which
Okay.
means it's universal.
Mm.
It's
Yeah, 'cause
not
I
li
hear that a lot from especially like Christian feminists that are like, well, we don't, ultimately we're supposed to submit to God. We don't make our husbands our God or blah blah blah. I mean, which is true, but not like,
it's true enough as far as the fact that the husband is not divine and he
yeah,
doesn't shouldn't receive worship, but there is a sense in which the woman's submission to God translates into, practically speaking, her submission to a man, either her father or her husband,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or if she's a widow, her grown son as well.
All right, well, that's patriarchy part two. I hope you're loving it. And I got to end with this. Christ is winning. He is building his church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Until next time. This is the Post Millennial Man.